I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, I'd like to say that things have calmed down in the UFO world and people are behaving like adults and deploying, reason and logic. And, as we know, that simply doesn't happen. And right now, ufology is embroiled in all of this game playing and turmoil. There have been documents that have been released that people are hanging their hat on, even though you really can't prove a thing about the documents, where they came from, yada, yada, yada. It's just so much that sometimes I look at this and I just kind of step back and think, are we serious? And I wonder, what the powers that be do when they sit back and they watch all of this, because everybody is so disjointed. Everybody is so involved with their egos. It is absolutely shocking to me. And I think the biggest thing that I'm finding as I do my research with Skinwalker Ranch and various other things is that the same people are coming up over and over again. And wouldn't you just kind of think that some of the newcomers might understand that there are some patterns there, and the aviary, the feathery little fellows, aren't necessarily promoting the truth? Have they ever? I don't know. These are some of the questions I have for my friend tonight and colleague, who I admire a great deal because, like myself, he is out there pushing the boundaries. He's not afraid to do that, because you cannot get to the truth of something if you're willing to accept every single thing that is thrown at you, especially when it comes to a topic this important. I admire his dedication. I admire his courage, and what he has done on the Black Vault is second to none. John Greenewald Jr. began researching government conspiracies at the age of 15, wrote his first book, Beyond UFO Secrecy, at 20, and has continued to create and maintain blackvault.com, where you get some of the most important information, declassified documents, premier resources for esoteric information. He is always pushing the boundaries, and I appreciate that. And there aren't too many people like that. And I want to say, John, first of all, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking time to be here, but I appreciate the fact that you are one of the very few people that has the gumption, I could use other words here, but to actually go out there and say, hey, look, these are the facts. And yet people are still, lighting the torches and coming after you and all of these things. And I think it was really interesting in your last interview that you did, where you were talking about some of the new recent developments, which we'll talk about. You said that in the UFO community, denial is proof of existence. Yes. In our community. And I think that was so beautifully put, because that is unfortunately the case. It's like you come out with fact after fact after fact, and then somebody's got another story that they're going to spin, or they're saying it's a cover-up, it's just like, it's mind-blowing. But describe a little bit more about what your thoughts are on this brilliant statement you made.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for the kind words. It's great to be back with you on here, and I hope I live up to what you said. So thank you for that. The comment you're referencing is something that has been a frustration of mine for many, many years. It's not like it's come around in the last few days or few weeks or few months, but rather it's been around for a long time, where only in ufology does a denial of something, where someone says, no, that didn't happen, or no, whatever, other people will make that as pure affirmation of it really happening. And of course, we're talking about the Thomas Wilson documents. And recently, Admiral Wilson yet again denied that this was something that was real and that it didn't take place. There were like little nuggets that were true, and he admitted to that. But he said that the meeting with Dr. Eric Davis never took place, had no idea who that was. He had not been in Las Vegas for years for prior to when the meeting took place. So, of course, everybody gloms onto that and goes, aha, I knew it happened because he's denying it. You know, it's like, well, wait a minute. You can't connect A to B that way. You just can't. You need the evidence to go along with it. And I've tried to stay away from those Wilson documents because I've been around long enough to know that it's a rabbit hole. And I finally gave in and dug into them. And sure enough, it is a rabbit hole, meaning you can dissect every little letter on those notes. And you're going to find little things here and there that goes, aha, he said no, so it had to happen. Aha, this guy's a real guy, so this has to be real. No, it doesn't. You need that evidence. So I dug in, and sure enough, nothing matched up. And this is the age-old dilemma in ufology, wherein people want to believe. It's something that I call the I want to believe syndrome. Mm-hmm. And the I want to believe syndrome is literally you sacrifice common sense, logic, and that good old-fashioned thing we call research. And you exchange that for just the thirst to believe in something. And so that's what we see this day and age, where people are reading into certain things in ways they probably shouldn't. And to them, that's proof. That's proof positive. They don't have anything to give you. There's nothing they can show you to prove it. But these little nuggets that they're finding here and there, that's proof positive. And sadly, that's just not how research works.
You know, it really doesn't. And I'm always amazed in ufology. It seems that ethics and all sorts of things just go out the window when you're dealing with this. And I've just been shocked over the years at some of the things that I've witnessed from the quote unquote community or some of the players involved, higher ups and different things. I mean, if we're not willing to stand up and promote integrity and good standards for research, and if we're not willing to look at the facts, whether they don't support your belief system or not, then we're never going to make any progress. And I think right now is one of those times that the little feathery fellows are still in the game, and they're trying to steer things and play all these games and things. And it's like the younger generation has simply not learned the lessons that other people have spelled out for them decade after decade. And it's absolutely shocking to me about all of this. But for people that are joining tonight, could you give us a little bit of background on what happened with the Admiral Wilson, with the documents that were released?
Sure. I mean, the short of it is these notes appeared on the internet last year, and a lot of people glommed onto them that they were detailing a meeting between Dr. Eric Davis, who I don't know if he's been on your show, so I don't want to misspeak, but I'm sure you've talked about him before, being connected to NIDS and right. Skinwalker Ranch, and obviously OSAP, and some of the reports that were created under the so-called Pentagon secret UFO study. So he's been around for a long time. The meeting was allegedly between him and an Admiral Thomas Wilson. And people have, just really kind of fallen down saying that this is legitimate, and yet there's really nothing to come along with it. Where I came along, like I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to stay away from them. In my, and I consider it short, but I've been in this field for 23, 24 years now, and I have seen the MJ-12 documents, and a lot of them, not just those original ones, but a lot of them surface since I've come aboard. I've seen the Project Aquarius documents circulate. I've seen Project Serpo circulate. I've seen alien pictures circulate. There's always something over the years that you glom onto, and you nailed it when you said earlier that some of the same names keep coming up over and over. And that is something that I think some of the newcomers in the field just downright ignore, that these players, I'll call them players, that just kind of keep popping up in all of these different stories. They don't care that these past stories are just ridiculous hoaxes with no evidence to support it. Do they make waves? Of course, because they're these extraordinary stories like an alien exchange program from the government. And, it's great science fiction. but there's nothing to go along with it. And then that'll die off. And then a couple years later, boom, we got something else. We got a new document. We got a new leak. We got a new something rather that we're going to glom onto. And what's odd is if you really pay attention, they're the same names that are entwined in it. And that's the frustrating thing. We're in a lot of these, again, what I call newcomers that have come along since the ATIP story broke, and they're big fans of the History Channel, and they run their blogs, and I really support their passion. I will give them props for that. But sadly, if you don't believe with what they believe, you're like the Antichrist. And that is something that I think is not what this field needs. And to go back to your question about the Wilson notes, when I dug into this, to me, it does not have any ounce of evidence to support that it happened. Now, are the documents real, and were they found in Edgar Mitchell's estate, which is what everybody's talking about now? Quite possibly. And in fact, I wouldn't doubt that. I shook hands with the man, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, a few times over the years before he passed away. He is an amazing American hero, and not believing in the events that are depicted on the documents is not a shot against him. But just because he had the piece of paper in his collection doesn't automatically make it true. And sadly, right. I'm seeing people write that. Well, Edgar Mitchell had it, and boom, that's it. That's proof positive. Well, wait a minute. No. And I can actually show you documents from the U.S. government obtained legally through the Freedom of Information Act. We're in a weekly World News article, the only UFO-related piece of document that ended up in like this Air Force's chief medical office in his desk. Why was it in his desk? We can speculate all day long. He's long been passed away. But why did he save this one document? Does that mean it's real? Of course not. It's the Weekly World News. My point is that people save documents or are given documents or, misplaced documents that they want to throw it out, and they, file it away for decades. Again, there's so many different variables, but I think that people read into what they want to, and they don't deal with the actual facts. So I took a stab at it. I made a video presentation, and I appreciate that. I created quite a few waves with a theory that I floated about the documents, and I'm not sure if you want me to get into that or not, but it was a perfectly plausible scenario. Will I bet my bottom dollar that this is what it is? No, of course not. I theorized that there is evidence to support that this is a creative script of some kind from either a fictionalized scene, a television show, or film. Again, wouldn't bet my house on it, but I would say that is a perfectly plausible explanation. So what I did is I dug into the era. If the data is to be believed on the document, I went into 2002 and what happened. The X-Files had its last season before it came back, but season 9 ended that very year on television, about a month. Again, if the data is to be believed, there was a television series called Beyond Belief, which was all about, get this, right, fictionalized stories with nuggets of truth. And you were supposed to decide what was real and what was not. That was the premise of the show. And that was literally within 45 days that it premiered, around where these notes were allegedly, when these alleged notes took place. So my whole point is I dug into the format. I showed a script from the 90s that I have in my personal collection of Groundhog Day, the movie script. Has nothing to do with UFOs.
Sounds like my life lately, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, there was some kind of synergy there using Groundhog Day, but it wasn't planned. I just happened to have an original script and pulled it out. And it is structured the exact same way. And I read through the script and then juxtaposed that with the alleged Eric Davis notes. And it's the same thing. Scene set up at the top, right down to what the guy was wearing and the time of day. Then you get into the dialogue. One quick funny thing that Nick Pope actually commented on, which I didn't know this, was you learn something new every day. The time that the meeting took place was 10:10. Now, I didn't think anything of this, and I just kind of put it in my video we're time stamping it, we're creating a scene. Nick said that was like a shout out to I don't know how serious he was, so I don't want to speak for him, but his post on my video was that 10:10 is when you buy a clock in a store, or whether it be as a prop for a movie set or you're bringing it home, they actually set it to 10:10. And the reason is it's actually more inviting. There's psychology behind it. that it's more inviting for you to buy it. It looks like a smile. It looks like, it sounds corny, but look it up. You can Google this. It's all over the place. I thought that was fascinating. That clocks, when they're used as props, are set as 10/10. That's why a lot of times you'll see a clock in a movie scene. They'll buy the clock, they'll put it in the wall, but the prop master doesn't change the time. So a lot of times you'll see it as 10/10. So I had to bring that up because I got a kick out of that, whether it was a coincidence or not. But that was, just kind of another thing to add to the mix. So I put it out there, and sure enough, it was more well received than I thought. But of course, the biggest fans of the Wilson documents started coming after me, and I was nuts and crazy. And how could I propose such a theory? And I'll close it off with this. My response was, you guys are attacking me, saying I'm crazy for saying that this extraordinary story is potentially a work of fiction and may be involved in some kind of creative work like a television show or a film. So I'm crazy for saying that or thinking that. But you guys are saying that this actually took place. The admiral broke his security clearance, that he decided to talk to Dr. Eric Davis in a car behind a building in Las Vegas. And it's all about crash retrievals, alien bodies, and so on. So my theory is crazy, but they'll buy that one. And that is why I got the kick out of.
Well, I mean, it's, I know you just look at this and it's like some of the things that I've come up with and done really, really hard work on, with regard to Skinwalker Ranch. And it's like, okay, so you guys are thinking it is aliens in an underground base or, this hexaglobine molecule or different things. And yet when you're presented with actual facts, it's like everybody's, oh no, that's simply not happening. And it is interesting. And I think what has happened with, some of the players that we're seeing, now that are involved, same names, they've befriended some of the newer people, and they have been very crafty about, I'm giving you this information, or I'm going to tell you this off the record. And so they've been good at placating people and making them feel like they are where it begins and ends. But what these people don't realize is they've done that before, and they've manipulated a lot of people. Yeah. And we've just, it's like, go back and look at history. I know we all want to think that disclosure is coming, all of TTSA and all of this stuff, but it's like, get a grip, get a clue. There are people involved that are trying to obtain funding for government contracts and have a vested interest in putting out a bunch of garbage. But I want to say something because I think this is really interesting. You mentioned the meeting where they were, where Eric Davis was talking in a Las Vegas parking lot. And I thought it was very, very interesting. There have been a lot of comments, a lot of great articles that have come out. I know that Keith Basterfield wrote a great article as of late. Paul Dean, the Australian researcher, also wrote a great article. But it's been mentioned, and Billy Cox did an article as well, where they were and I want to read this. This is from Billy Cox in his first public statement on Core Secrets. Wilson rejected the entire premise of the meeting and its role. The notes indicate that Wilson and Davis rendezvoused in Las Vegas inside a car attended by 3 uniformed military personnel in the parking lot of the Special Projects building of the defense contractor EG&G. And I want to just flash forward or go back to a blog by Jeremy Corbell, Cameleo, which has to do with Skinwalker Ranch, where he mentions there's a specific entry, the EG&G operative, retired Marine Corps Special Forces individual who worked on multiple projects for several different contractors, including Edgerton, Germhausen, EG&G Special Projects Division, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so it goes on to say the Special Forces operative is careful not to reveal his sources and methods, but over several hours of questions and answers did confirm that one of the projects he worked on, testing advanced technology, quote-unquote toys, including non-lethal weapons at several locations in the Uinta Basin. Some of that went on at Skinwalker Ranch. And then we flash forward to the Joe Rogan show with Jeremy Corbell and Bob Lazar. And guess what? Here we've got them saying that they are pulling in some guy that can confirm Lazar's identity, and his name is Mike Thigpen. After 30 years, they found him and talked with him by phone. He confirmed, and I'm going to read this from that little post under that show on the Joe Rogan thing. He confirmed for me that it was his job to do security clearances for the test site for EG and G sometimes. So isn't that interesting?
It's really hard to keep a lot of this straight because you get a lot of these stories from anonymous sources and stuff that you can't verify yourself. And at least with Jeremy, he had mentioned who the guy was, but I know a lot of the kind of the negative reaction to that was that there was no recording, there was no nothing. It was just kind of his word, which is fine. I'm not doubting it. I'm just saying that a lot of these elements come from anonymous sources and people that are not accessible. They're not coming out. They're not verifying anything. And just to kind of tie it back into the Wilson document stuff. And now the MJ-12 document, one of the documents, is coming back into play, where the only evidence that's touted is anonymous sources. And it just bugs me that if that's all you have to stand on, this field will not move forward at all.
It won't. And I think it's at such a critical stage, which I'm always talking about, because we've got, the old timers who have been really wonderful and have mentored me and you as well. I know how much you cared about Stan Friedman and respected him, and some of these people that were instrumental, and they were very kind to both of us. But you've got a lot of great people that we can learn from that have gone to great lengths, like Barry Greenwood. He spent 10 years debunking painstakingly, MJ-12. And it's like for you and I think, to see some of these people pop up out of nowhere, which I must say, and then assume that they're authorities in things, and they clearly are playing for a certain side. It has been really a fascinating thing that I really encourage people that care about the integrity of this subject and want to find the truth out about it, that they definitely look into and understand who they are dealing with or getting their information from. And I also wanted to say before we go to break, because I've been, as of late, been called a skeptic and a debunker, and if telling the truth is being skeptical or debunking, I don't know what to tell you. I am telling the truth. I'm doing the best I can, as is John Greenewald, and we have to be open enough and logical enough to understand that we are not getting what we are being fed. And I mean, what are your closing thoughts before we go to break on that?
Well, with what you said about Barry Greenwood, my very quick before your break is that I think people need to listen to those who have been around. And sadly, so many people have spent so much time debunking and going after things that, again, history tends to repeat itself and they keep coming back, and nobody wants to look backwards. They don't want to look at that. And I can see on Twitter I'm already being attacked because I said newcomers earlier. And I think, if memory serves me well, I called myself one, even though I've been around for 23 years, right, that I called myself. I'm already getting attacked for that statement. And it's like people need to understand that there are people that have devoted decades upon decades to this, and we need to listen to them.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you for summing that up. I'm Erica Lukes here with John Greenewald. We're going to take a break, and we will be back.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Hello, KCOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here from the Fenton Files to tell you how to watch UFOCon 2020, which was held right before the virus scare in shelter-in-place. It was a conference like no other, so don't miss out on the specially priced on-demand replay of what is already the most talked-about conference of 2020. Visit UFOCon2020.com. That's UFOCon2020.com.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
UFOs, a voice cries out. Evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio, Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
If ever a breed was affectionate to a fault, it's the Golden Retriever. They're people dogs, pure and simple. And the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada needs your help. If you would like to volunteer, foster, adopt, or donate, go to the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada's website at grrsn.org. That's grrsn.org. Or call 598-GOLD. That's 598-GOLD.
You ready to go?
It's showtime!
Here we go, world. You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio Contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I want to just thank all of my listeners from all over the world. We have such a great support system, and I appreciate the show support. As we all know, we're living in very trying times, and I think I'm on the verge again here in Utah of shutting my business down for the second time in the next it's just been, anyway, it's a nightmare. So anyway, I want to thank all of you who take the time to support my show and to keep me on the air. You mean the world to me. Specifically, people like Royce, people like, Mario. He has been just a saint for me, and I love you guys. Thank you so much. I work really hard to present you with information that I feel you need to know, and I don't, just like John Greenewald, my guest tonight, I don't find pleasure in doing any of this. I came into this and I was so excited and so just thinking that all of us were doing this to be on the same page and to have this wonderful exploratory process. And then I got my rear end handed to me time after time after time. And I don't want any of you to have to make the mistakes and go through what I went through. And that is why I'm so passionate about it. I'm not a debunker. I know there's something going on, but this ain't it. And that is why it is so critical for me and people like John Greenewald to be able to express things that we have learned, things that can be backed up, and try to teach other people, newcomers, whoever, and I'm not quite sure how we classify newcomers, but whatever. We want to give people good information. And so I think, and another thing I want to just say, I think it's important to be respectful to people who've been in the field longer than you have. I don't know, people that are trying to teach things. And I think, unfortunately, with some of the young guns, they've got this mentality, this kind of bully mentality, where they're going to go in and attack people like you, John, or attack people like me, which I will say I've tried my very hardest to be nothing but nice and supportive. In fact, I've had a couple of them on my show, and I just think, okay, enough is enough. If you guys want to call in, and I'm going to throw this out there because I know some of you are listening with questions for John and myself, the number is 702-425-9230. Call in, bring it on. So anyway, John, back to what we were talking about. I mean, yeah, let's continue, because you've done some really great work, and I appreciate everything that you're putting out there. What other information do you feel is important to talk about with regards to the recent discoveries you've made?
Sure. Well, I'm sorry to hear about your business, by the way.
It's the way it is. It's the way it is for everybody around the world, you know?
It really is just a weird time. So I wish you the best with that. We could talk off the air about it, but I do want to say publicly, I'm really sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Well, one of the other things that I would bring up, because again, I think the Twitter, like, how dare you say newcomer, I want to bring that up just simply because I think that that's very indicative of the time that we are living in this field. And I think what we need to do and what we need to be comfortable with is to be able to have these conversations either between you and me, or me and whomever, or you and whomever, and not agree, but that's okay. And at the end of the day, you're friends. There is such a divide in the sand that if you just say something like, yeah, the newcomers that have been only around for a couple of years, right? Not even name names. And then people come after you, go, how dare you say that about me? It's like, well, wait a minute. You don't even know what I was referring to. The line in the sand is so deep that if there is this massive cover up, which I do believe that there is, if there is any hope that that cover up will end, if there is any light at the end of the tunnel that the government will say, you know what? I think the public's ready. That is not going to invite that to happen. And I think that the UFO community as a whole, especially right now, is its own worst enemy. That they are doing all these infighting and this and that, and profiling the worst stuff that you can profile. MJ-12 surfacing again. MJ-12 could absolutely be very real. But the problem within the last week and a half or week is that it's now rumored and circulated that Dr. Hal Puthoff, who obviously is another common name that everyone should recognize, co-founder of TTSA and so on, alluded to a crash retrieval document that had leaked. And he had said this, I think, on a radio show back in, off the top of my head, I think it was like the beginning of 2018, but don't quote me on that, and with George Knapp. And people were scrambling to try and figure out what this document was. Well, now in the last week and a half, some people think they figured it out. And it is this MJ-12-like document. And here we go again, right? A little over a year or so, whenever the Wilson document comes around, now this thing starts circulating again. It's been around for a while. I traced it back to like 2000. It's been on the internet for 20 years. And here it is surfacing again that it is 100%, the absolute truth. Made a video on this one also, and I dug into it, and I was able to show that the document, number one, was not typed in 1961. I showed that the top secret, they weren't stamps, but like the top secret text that appeared at the top of the bottom, said top secret Umbra, lined up to the pixel on 3 of the 4 pages. Those were the 3 that had the top secret identification marks on it. Lined up to the pixel. Now, why is that important? Well, that means it's digitally made. And fast forward, well, why would that be? Well, because it wasn't typed in 1961. But Richard Doty, another name that keeps popping up, was already involved in these documents years ago. And of course, he's got his hands all over it. And he gives this explanation. Well, it was retyped from the original. So what you have to do with these documents is you have to dissect it. You have to dissect the anatomy of a hoax.
Right.
And the anatomy of a hoax, you really have 2 big factors. One, you need to have real elements, because that's going to be the breadcrumb that you're going to get the gullible people to say, aha, I knew it. and you use those real breadcrumbs entwined into a fictionalized story, and you've got a pretty good document to show off. Why do I say that that's important? Look at television. We've done that time and time again, where we've made major blockbuster movies and top television series based on a fictionalized account with real breadcrumbs, right? So that's nothing new. So when you translate that into a document, boom, you've got something that's going to translate. The next part of a hoax, when you break it down, is that you have to explain any red flag right up front, and enter Richard Doty. So when you can prove that a document was not typed in 1961, it's, well, it was retyped much later so that it's all explainable. So don't bring that up. And so in this video, if that kind of doesn't really put it to bed with all the same names popping up and hoax documents, what I did was I traced the document to being from Timothy Cooper, and did that by a received stamp that appears on the top right-hand corner. And I showed that Timothy Cooper, who's been involved in the MJ-12 thing since the beginning, stamped a lot of the stuff that he got. I found multiple documents from his collection with the exact same date. So this was 100% from his collection. Now, why is that important? He's the source of the document, and after years of touting them as real, he finally gave in and he said, you know what? These things are all a hoax. He says, I fell into this. I thought that they were real, and I was wrong. Now, as far as I know, he's never retracted that. After he denounced him, he backed away, and he's really kind of not heard from anymore. I reached out to him a week and a half ago, no response. I don't know if he got my message, but I wanted to, just do my due diligence. But regardless, that is his word. He backed out, doesn't tout him anymore. However, the MJ-12 document is now being touted as 100% verified, 100% real.
What? No, what? Okay, who is gone on record?
Well, a lot of
the,
you'll find it in blogs. You would reference Young Guns. Now, why are the blogs important? Well, because they're getting coverage,
right?
And they're touting these documents, and then all of a sudden they gain traction.
Right.
Now, these aren't just like little chat rooms where no one's paying attention and it comes and goes. No, there's exposure for these things. And so when I've brought up to some of the authors of these blogs that are showing these documents, the source, the irrefutable source, and I can prove it. You don't need to take my word for it. I can show you the stamp that comes from, Timothy Cooper's collection. If he says it's a hoax, that's the source of the document. You can't go farther back than that. He's the one that brought it out. If he says it is a hoax, it is not real, how do you explain that? And no one will answer me, and it's like, again, only in ufology is a denial proof that it's real or proof that something actually happened. And history was repeating itself. I love Stanton Friedman, as you mentioned. I've got a lot of respect for him. He knew that I didn't see 100% eye to eye with him on MJ-12, and we were great friends at the end of the day. There was nothing wrong with that. He had his beliefs and I had mine. He had a lot of great evidence, and I felt that I had some as well. And we didn't see eye to eye. Nothing wrong with that. But again, people are so adamant if you say that MJ-12 document is a hoax, that is a problem. And going back to what I was saying with the government, if there is this massive cover-up, they can sit back and put their feet up on the table and just kind of laugh, because these documents are not what should be out in the forefront right now. They just shouldn't be. And that is not because that's my opinion. It's because if any reputable journalist, whether it be the New York Times or whatever, starts looking into this, and they realize that the Wilson documents is got some breadcrumbs of truth to it sprinkled in, but for the most part, it's only supported by anonymous sources. Then you've got MJ-12 that traces back to a hoax where the source of the document says that it's fake. You think they're going to take this field seriously? No. Is a politician going to keep pushing the issue if people try and get coverage for an MJ-12 document? No. That document may be real. Maybe it turns out that we find out, or my son finds out, that it's real. But this day and age, when there's absolutely nothing to support it, I guarantee that's not what this field needs.
It isn't. And I think that's sad. And it's like, I threw out the phone number for the show. It's like, if you guys have a problem, call up and let's talk. let's try to figure this out together. And hopefully people are open enough and intelligent enough to understand that, for the past, decade after decade, we've had to deal with this kind of stuff. And to me, now it has really gotten to a point where it is, this is bad.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I don't think neither of us are trying to do this from a place that we are debunking the topic. We're trying to get to the truth.
Yeah.
And if other people can't see that and they can't promote things and support things or have a dialogue about things, then I don't know what to freaking say.
Yeah.
But it's shameful.
What's sad is that you are labeled a debunker and a bad guy or a bad gal if you want to say, hey, look, there's no evidence to support this. Everything points towards a hoax, or, doing your due diligence. I remember about a year and a half ago, I was, still get quite a few attacks here and there. I know that comes as a shock, but somebody had said something to me about not believing that there was a cover up. I forget, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, how can you not see the cover up and this, that, and the other thing? And my response was, wait a minute, like, you obviously have zero idea what my background is. I am a 100% pure believer that there is a cover up here. I can bore you to death for hours and hours and show you real documents that prove just that. Do they prove alien? Of course not. But when you start dissecting what it could mean, you can't really scratch that off the list very quickly. And so I realized at that moment that some people who had just kind of, again, entered the field, this is like a year and a half ago, so just entered when like TTSA came around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you are trying to dissect it and ask important questions, you are labeled that debunker and no one cares about your history. And that's also what's frustrating, is that to deal with these hoaxes and these I'll just say controversial documents. Some I think are comfortably labeled as hoaxes. Other ones are likely hoaxes. When you deal with that, it is a full-time job just in itself, because there is so much crud that comes around. And when you think you've put it to bed, it recirculates a couple years later.
Yeah.
And here we are doing the exact same conversation that we did with Project Aquarius and Project Serpo. All it is a different name, a different document, and a different medium that it's distributed as, distributed on. And so that's what's frustrating about it, is that you see this over and over, and yet others will not acknowledge the information that has come before. And I'll sum it up this way. The source of a document says it's a hoax. If you are going to continue believing it is 100% fact, I don't know what to tell you, because you need to then have the evidence to contradict the source. And once you have that, great. Have even a theory. But sadly, we just don't have either. People just blindly believe it with absolutely no acknowledgement that the source admitted it was a hoax. And you see the same thing, by the way, with the alien autopsy footage. If you ever talk to Philip Mantle, it's the same deal. And it just recirculates, and it just keeps going over and over, dies for a little bit, comes back a couple years later.
And the whole thing is so interesting to me. And I will say that, when I got into this field, I was saying, I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I believed in things that I went down and I promoted things that I shouldn't have. And so that was a learning process for me, and I've been pretty open about that over the years. And you can listen to my show and see how my thought process has changed. But so this is it's just one of those things. It's very interesting. But we've got a caller on hold, and I appreciate this. So we've got a few minutes before our break, but I want to just invite our caller on holds to the program. Thank you for calling in. Hopefully you're still there.
Hello. Yes.
Hello. Yes. How are you?
Good. I've been following the entire broadcast, and as one of the newcomers, as John said, just in the last 4 years or so, I wanted to see if you guys could touch on something about the actual Wilson document that I keep coming back to, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about, at least not as much. You guys are going into deep background, the origins of other corroborating sources. The entirety of the document, and correct me if I'm wrong as you take this question on, was what Admiral Wilson allegedly said in the back of a car to someone. And then he came out recently and said, I believe he used the word fiction. If that's the entirety of the source, I'm just curious, what would Admiral Wilson's motivation be to lie about it at this point? And why shouldn't we just take him at his word? I guess that's the entirety of my question. Hi, John.
I appreciate the question, and thanks for calling. So the short of it is, I don't see a reason not to take him at his word. See, this is very much what's interesting about, again, going back to what I call the I want to believe syndrome. When a military officer or somebody of high government standing says something pro or positive UFO or something that people believe in, they go, aha, see, you've got a military person, a top government official. They are saying this, it has to be true. But when the same standard, the same level of stature, I should say, comes out and said something that you don't like, then some people will automatically go, aha, they're lying. They're a liar, right? So he's lying to everybody. Well, wait a minute. I thought you held, military officers in a very high standing. Why now all of a sudden is he a liar because he's not admitting that this all took place? So there's very much a double standard where certain things are applicable and then they don't apply when you don't like it, And I'm not saying that for you, Jazz. I'm saying that just in a generality for those that I feel want to believe so bad that he or she will, again, just change the narrative to make it work for them. So not to repeat myself, military person comes out and they like it, boom, they are the most honest, most reputable, best witnesses you can have. Military officer comes out and you don't like what they say, they're a liar. It's like, well, wait, you kind of can't have it both ways. So for me, I automatically go that somebody is telling me the truth until I can prove otherwise. Now, some people will argue with me on that, but I really do think that way. And TTSA is a prime example. I was so excited when that story came about. I am known for being skeptical about it, and I still am skeptical about it. There's certain questions that have been answered and others that have not. But where did that skepticism come from? It wasn't inherited when the story was born. It was based on evidence or the lack thereof as time went on. And so that is how I operate. And sadly, others just, again, will switch that narrative to however they want to believe.
And absolutely. And I think it is fascinating. And Jez, I just want to thank you for taking a moment to call into the show. And it's important to have a dialogue about all of this, as we all know, because this is a subject that there's so many nuances and so many behind the scenes games, and then people coming into this. And I don't think, you're not using newcomers as a derogatory thing. We've all been there. We're all, compared to Barry Greenwood, I'm a newcomer. Compared to Stanton Friedman, you're a newcomer. We all go through this, and we should be able to, as like Barry Greenwood and some of these great people did with me, mentor people and try to have conversations with people and get to the bottom of things. But for both of us, we see a big problem here because, like you say, these people have been involved in some very sketchy things that have not, at the end of the day, they're how old? And what have they really contributed? A lot of distraction, a lot of probably they've made quite a bit of money for themselves being private contractors. But at the end of the day, what are their true motivations? Is it to, disclose that UFOs are real? I think, to me, the question that I have is that why are these now all of a sudden considered a threat? Well, because they're contractors and they need to make money, and there's a money trail here, and I think that's very important for people to understand. But they don't want to, because they want to hold people up and pretend like they're gods. Which I did too. I thought that some of these people, when I first came into the field, were heroes, and the more I've learned and seen their behavior, it's like, ugh. This has been disappointing for me. in some regards.
It's disappointing and frustrating, and I know you're coming up on a break and my time is done, but I will say about the threat, that is such an amazing conversation and one that we may actually respectfully disagree on, where I actually align with them a little bit. But the finances is a topic that needs to be dealt with. Money talks, and you need to look at that aspect in a lot of these different stories, whether they be hoaxes, whether they be likely hoaxes, or whether it be, again, kind of reality. When you talk about like the OSAP contract going to Bigelow Aerospace, I don't want to make any accusations here against a corporation that has a lot more money than I do. But I think that what you have to look at is quite possibly this was what you call a sweetheart deal. Now, does that negate from any UFO findings that they had? No. If they have good findings, great. But it seems like as time goes on, the people move the goalpost. And I can't tell you the nasty things that were thrown my way a year and a half to 2 years ago, floating that idea. In fact, I was actually just talking about it today. It goes back to the end of December, Christmas Eve, when I first published my article that floated that idea that this was potentially a sweetheart deal. And that got a lot of flack. As time goes on, right, people then switch it, go, well, even if that's the case, it's not that big of a deal. Now, why do they switch it? Because the evidence actually shows a sweetheart deal is kind of likely when you look at the evidence and you use a little bit of common sense and see how things played out. My whole point is that you switch that narrative, you move that goalpost. That is one of the biggest symptoms to the I want to believe syndrome. And that's where people like you and I get frustrated, because you're trying to say, hey, this MJ12 source says it's a hoax. Hey, there's no evidence. Hey, anonymous sources do absolutely nothing for us. And they just don't listen to you because they know more than you. And being in the field longer than anyone else, I would not argue makes your opinion any better or not. And I've never said that to any person that I have said, hey, you might want to consider this. But sadly, once they get their mind set, and again, I'm referencing those that are so adamant about their beliefs this day and age, once their mind is set, there's absolutely no changing it. Facts aside, evidence aside, and that's where people like us get so frustrated.
Right, and that's, if we're going to make progress, that just simply can't happen. We have to have a dialogue, and we have to be, we have to understand that there's more to this. And I appreciate you being here. I have a lot of respect for you. I know you've taken a lot of flack, but you're doing incredible work, and lots of us out there appreciate that. I want to thank John Greenewald, who has been here, and you can go check out theblackvault.com, listen to his great podcast. I'm going to be up with Royce Myers, UFO Watchdog, next. Thank you, John. We will be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I am always happy to spend Friday nights with my friends and supporters. I am very grateful to all the people that chime in and that get in here, and they're very supportive. I also appreciate people like Mario, who has been so wonderful to me over the years. And I want to give a shout out to David Cook, and Paige is in here, and Phil, who has been on my show multiple times, and we stir up a lot of stuff. But it is really important to me as I go through this process, because this costs me a lot of money. This costs me, it is not an easy process. I have aged 100 years in the past year. And I want to believe the best in people. And sadly, through my process in this, I have learned time and time again that there are people involved in this subject that don't have empathy. They're not kind. They're not doing this from a good place. And they want to either get involved with their ego and be number one and push you out of the way, or they're working for a group, or they don't care if people are potentially being subjected to non-lethal weapons testing and their quality of life is in question. And it's amazing to me the things I've learned, but my listeners give me hope. You keep me going every week because you understand that we have to ask questions. Just like John Greenewald was talking about on the last part of the show, we are being fed a line of garbage, lots of lines of garbage, and it is our job to weed through that to form a cohesive community and make sure that we are getting to the bottom of this. My guest this evening now is somebody who's been on my show before. And when I was, just new to the field publicly, I looked at him and maybe thought he was El Diablo, as I did a couple other people. It's like, oh my God, I hope I don't make it on this guy's bad list. Am I naughty? What am I, it's just like I kept waiting for that day to happen, but I am here with Royce Myers, UFO Watchdog, and he has very diligently over the years made sure that he is looking at people, looking at their associations, and like me, kind of reached a point in his journey with all of this that he understood that there were people in the subject that needed to be held accountable, or people that are coming into the field, they need to be aware of these people. And I really appreciate that. And thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And so, what's happened in your world? There's a lot of stuff going on. And of course we see, like I mentioned, the same players coming up over and over again, and controversies that should have been long gone are rearing their ugly heads, and they've got new people holding the torches. And so what are some of your thoughts with what's going on?
I've just been sitting back, watching it go down for the most part. It's been crazy time. This on top of everything else that's happening, and I just watch what's happening, and I don't get it, because I come from a place where evidence is really important to me, and I'm not seeing a lot of that. And I don't mean anonymous sources. I don't mean, this person told me this. So I mean actual hard evidence for validating what some people are saying is true. And that's been kind of a constant theme in the whole field for a long, long time. And I got into this back in 94. So I've been around for a while, and it's amazing to see. It just seems like every 4 or 5 years, something like this happens. Some crazy big thing comes out and the truth is going to be exposed, and disclosure's coming, and ha, 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 look at you idiots, and blah, blah, blah. And it never happens.
And I have to say that if for those of you who aren't familiar with your background is in security, you're in law enforcement and crime scene investigation, and so you understand what it means to do your due diligence. You're out there, and you are, you're not going to go out on a limb and say something is something that it isn't until you've got proof for that. And so why do you think some of the people involved in this don't have a concept that maybe they need some evidence?
Oh, it's really hard. Yeah, see what I mean? It's really hard just to put your finger on one reason why, because there's so many of it. There's so many reasons. And I think a large part of it is that it's kind of entertaining, and maybe it's kind of fun to believe, some of this stuff, because, it indulges your imagination. I think some people hawk it because they partially believe it and they're making money off of it. And I could just go on and on and on and on. But the bottom line is that when you have something this big, supposedly, okay, let's just say I have something that I'm offering as proof, or my claim is I have X. Well, in order to really substantiate that X ties into everything exactly as I've presented it as, you have to have this little thing called evidence. And evidence comes in a lot of different forms. It can be testimonial, which, in the opinion of a lot of people, can be some of the lowest forms of evidence, or it can be physical. And I just don't see a lot of people going this route from, like the linkage triangle is huge in a lot of fields. And the linkage triangle, you can put any three words in it to make it loop back to whatever. And generally what it is like if you have a crime scene, so you have the victim at the bottom of the triangle, right? And then you have the evidence on the left-hand side of the triangle. And then on the right side of the triangle, you have your suspect. So if you can't tie those three pieces to each other, you can't prove that what you're claiming happened. And it's the same thing with UFOs, is that at the bottom of that triangle, you'd have your claim, and then on the left, you'd have your evidence, and then you'd have validation or validity on the other side of it. And anytime you bring one link in that triangle, it can't support the other side, and therefore the link can't be continual.
And so, I mean, my question again is like, why don't people look at this sort of thing?
Some people just don't want to. They don't want to care about the evidence. And this is on both sides too. And
right, absolutely.
For people that are just hearing me for the first time, because I think most people that know me from my website, and I used to post in UFO updates quite a bit, and my blog as well. And so for people that don't know me, and I'm not wanting to be a celebrity in this by all means, or any means, simply put is that I'm just kind of in the middle. I'm skeptical of some things, but other things I'm convinced of that are out of the ordinary. And I try not to promote a lot of the theories flying out there about what's what, and it's this, or it's reptilians, or it's aliens, or, we have secret bases on the moon, and, stuff like that. And, I've always said that a lot of this can be explained. A lot of it's very explainable. And when I first got into the field, I was thinking that a lot of the stuff, because I'm looking back now at the stuff that I used to kind of believe, and I look at it now and I go, wow, that was pretty crazy. Because during that time, I've been exposed to other sources of information. And a lot of times what happens with people who just want to believe in things is, like I said, they're doing it for a number of reasons. It could be anything. It could just be that this is it. I hate saying this, but some people that really, really fall into those holes and just keep going and going and going, I sometimes think that might be connected to some mental illness. Or just people have sat there and worked so hard on something, they feel like they've put all this time and all this effort in it that, gosh, and everything I'm finding has to be true. And then you just have the people that are a little bit of everything, and they're trying to make money on it. I mean, really, how many people do UFO stuff full time? I know I certainly don't.
Well, unfortunately for me, I do, because it's obviously not paying the bills. But I mean, I've just become, this is such an important part of my life, and I find it immensely fascinating. And so, yeah, it is a full-time gig for me. But and I think there are other people out there who spend a great deal of time, probably more than a full-time job, doing this, but that doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't at all. I mean, it all comes down to intentions. And if your intention is to be a real researcher or a real investigator, there's rules that go along with all this. Even though everything in this field is just so strange as it is, there are certain rules that you really need to abide by when you're trying to prove something. And I don't see a lot of that.
You don't, and I think it's unfortunate, but we keep hoping. And there is, like I said, looking at the people or knowing the people that listen to my show, they are very thoughtful and dedicated, and they understand that, we should ask questions. And I think that's great. And like I said when I was talking to John, it's like this has been a learning process for me, for him, for you, where when we first got into the field, we had different ideas about things, and then over time we've been able to step back and look at the bigger picture of some of the games at hand and how really easy it is to hide covert projects and different things and money-making schemes, especially when those of us who have a public voice aren't stepping up and saying, hey, wait a minute, this looks like it's wrong, and we need to be doing more of that.
Yeah, we do. And that's part of the problem, too, is that you get these cliques that form and nobody wants to call the other person out. And I've seen that a bunch of times where person A is making the claim that this happened. Person B has got the goods showing that that's not true and really lets person A have it because they're tired of whatever's going on. And then suddenly person C, who's friends with person A, steps in and says, oh, but we're colleagues. They're a good person. Well, I'm not judging if they're a good person or not to some extent, but in the sense that if you step in for a colleague and defend their position, even when they're wrong, there's something fundamentally wrong with that.
Well, I think people should have enough humility to, when they're looking at this, to step back and say, wait a minute, this is an unknown. We are entering new territory here. And if we can't admit that we're fallible, and that we will make mistakes along the way, and that perhaps we should take somebody who's been in the subject for a long time or has paid their dues, if we can't take some of that information and look at it, then there's a problem there. But I don't know. I mean, it's just so crazy. And I have to ask you, I mean, like you said, you've sat back and you've looked at what was happening with the Wilson Davis documents and some of the other things that have taken place. And then you've got this, the fake 1961 Special National Intelligence Estimate. And I want to just give a shout out to Paul Dean, the Australian researcher, and Jan Aldrich, who was on my show last week. They're offering a $1,000 offer to prove that this document is genuine. But what are your thoughts? And have you been looking into this new old document that is circulating right now?
I think that $1,000 is pretty safe. I don't think anybody's going to get paid. But there were so many problems, and the documents are not my area. That's not anywhere near my expertise on anything like that. But apparently there have been so many problems pointed out with this document, and the fact that it just even has the name in MJ12, that reference that's in there, that automatically you just crumble it up and throw it away.
And I think that would be good. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that happen.
No, no.
But I mean, over the years, as you've looked at this and things, what have been some of the things that have kind of alarmed you and woken you up to, so you understand that there's something that is taking place that we need to be aware of that isn't necessarily in our best interest or the subjects?
Well, when I got started in this, and this goes back to me having observed two objects within the same week, both one relatively up close, and a couple of other experiences that I've had. And so I'm coming from a place of not being a debunker, to say the least, but to hopefully show people that some of these people out here making these claims aren't telling you the truth. They're just trying to get into your wallet. And so I had to kind of navigate my way through this. And I've told a story about the UFO conference that I went to back in the 90s and all my encounters with people there. The real danger is that it steers to where people are going places, and it comes all full circle to people who are serious about it and who want to try and see things through. It brings a ridicule to your front door. That's really what the real danger is. Not to mention that, that we've got that cult of personality that's ever so present in UFOs and other topics that go along with it, that a lot of people start forming like faith circles almost, I suppose you'd call them. To the degree to where they're kind of worshiping one person, and whatever subject it is that they're involved with. And that becomes dangerous, because even when the person who's kind of the leader, the role model, I guess, if you will, of all that, when they're wrong, their people rarely question them. That's kind of where that leads. So, you really have to look at it from all points of view. You do.
Yeah,
and I follow
absolutely.
people online, like, some people that I follow, people would go, "You follow them?" Well, if they've got something to say, and I want to hear it. I want to hear what they have to say. Well, up until a point. Once you start throwing MJ12 around, that's it. I'm done from there on.
And I have to ask you, with regard to your list on the blacklist on UFO Watchdog, I mean, do you have people on there that you now maybe would shift from the good list to the bad list? Oh
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people did really, really good work in the beginning, and then later you watch them as they go, and they kind of follow that progression to where you're like, oh, okay, this person's really thinking things through, to screaming, well, it's real and you'll have to deal with it without proving it, sort of things. And so, when I start seeing that progression, I was like, oh, why did I put it in there? And I have no interest in editing the website right now, because it's just it's a terrible website to begin with. I mean, let's be honest, the design's horrible. And the other thing is that I just don't have the interest in going and fixing some of that stuff, but it sounds like I probably should.
Well, I did get a question about a person on the list that maybe, given kind of the recent developments with Skinwalker Ranch and some of the misinformation, Bob Lazar, yada, yada, if that would still be a person that would be on that list. And I would definitely say that you probably not, but when's the last time that you updated that?
Oh, I haven't touched that website for years. And I mean like years. Probably going all the way back to the mid 2000s, maybe a bit like that.
And isn't that interesting? And it's like the same thing I was mentioning with my radio show. It's like you look back at the first, all of my radio shows and the people that I brought on and the people I supported, and it's like that it just has changed so much. And just like, obviously, your feelings, because you've gone through that similar discovery process. It is very interesting for all of us to go through.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, I was taken with a lot of things in this field and a lot of researchers. And I actually wound up doing a little bit of work with one of them. And that's what really kind of started turning me off to them, just in terms of these are behind the scenes conversations that maybe it'll be for another time. But seeing those people and, having other people who are coming into the field who are really new and really don't know a lot about those people, I just hope that people actually go and just dig a little deeper on some of those people.
I hope so too. And I think it's been interesting because especially with the Skinwalker things and the MUFON things that I've talked about, because I feel they're important. And if we want to get to the bottom, we've got to look at these things and look at the dysfunction. But it's been funny that some of these people are just saying that I'm, attacking people. I'm really not. If a lot of people understood what I'd been through behind the scenes at the hands of some of these people, then maybe they could, say that. And I think at one point in time, I will have a show maybe in the next couple of weeks where I'm actually talking about what I have been through behind the scenes with some of these people. But it's like, it's not fun for any of us to go out here and talk about people that we once held in high regard. But we're doing it because because it's important.
Yeah, it is. And I just, Man, I'm just running out of stuff to say. How sad is that? I got stuck. I ran out of things to say.
Yeah, it is interesting. And so, like, with the current games that are at hand and some of the things that are taking place, like, what has been kind of catching your eye, even if you just sit back and watch things unfold?
I think that the latest intelligence bill has been really, really interesting to see. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we should talk about that when we get back from break, but give us a little intro because we've still got a couple more minutes.
Yeah. So what's happened is that it was maybe last week, somebody had posted on Twitter about a bill that's going through right now. And I'll have to pull the bill up to read the particular section on it. It's on page 11, I think. And what's happening is they're essentially asking for a UAP, and if you don't know what that means, it's unidentified aerial phenomena. Help me out, Erica.
So, yep, unidentified aerial phenomena. Yep.
Okay, thank you. It's been a long day. And what they're doing is they're going to form a task force, and they're going to order that a report be produced within a certain time frame regarding all the information that this task force derives on anything UFO related or UAP related, however you want to say it. And I think it was Senator Marco Rubio who had introduced the bill. And it's going to be really interesting to see because a lot of people are screaming, oh, it's disclosure, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I'll say this, that some of the people that I had problems with, namely To the Stars Academy, in the beginning, before they came out with the big announcement, the videos and all that stuff, was that I was just hearing a lot of this is coming. And I didn't think anything was coming, and those videos dropped. And those videos are really important. And so is the story behind them and the programs that were involved in that. And I credit them with actually going up and getting some of this legislation to start happening. And, I'm hearing the music.
I know, there's the music. We're going to take a break. I am here with Royce Myers, UFO Watchdog. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare, and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
There is a world outside that which we live in. A realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole.
The Paradigm Matrix
Explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about, at least not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
1, 2, 3, 4!
You are listening
to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds.
Love the music. All I listen to.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the last segment of UFO Classified. As always, I'm very happy to be here on a Friday night, and you give me the reason to keep coming back here and to persevere, because as you know, you guys have seen this, there's not been an easy road for me, and I don't take any pleasure in talking about some of the things I do. It's been really hard, and so I do understand that there is something real and genuine. I also understand that we deserve the best and we deserve the truth, and we are simply not getting that. And so if I'm pressing things, it's for a reason, and it's for our own greater good. So I just say that to all the little trolls out there. I am here tonight with Royce Myers, who is UFO Watchdog, who has been looking at this. He's been in the subject for decades, and he understands, just like I do, that there are things and people at play that are taking advantage of the subject, and there people that are getting into this, the newcomers, which is not a derogatory thing unless you ask disrespectful to other people. We're all there. We've all been there and done that. And so I think it's good to learn from people like you, Royce, and I really appreciate that. But you were talking about, when we left off, you were talking about another thing that has come out as of late. And please continue about that and give our listeners more details, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm not the document guy. Maybe you should have had John on for both hours, but...
Nah.
So essentially, it's an act, and it's going to be, if passed, coming in 2021. And essentially what it is that they've created a task force for UAPs. And the purpose of this task force is that once the bill is passed, they are, they are to produce a report in 180 days. And the information is going to be coming from not only the military, and I don't think, I haven't seen a lot of talk about this other part of it, but also the Federal Bureau of Investigation, because as a lot of people might know that the FBI did a number of UFO investigations because they were afraid of the military aspect and that it might be a foreign power testing something nefarious. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they're wanting the FBI to produce stuff. I think the big part of this thing that's coming from Congress is that not only do they want the report, they want it to be unclassified and available to the public, essentially. So that's a pretty big deal. It really is. And this is a story with some teeth. I mean, we're not talking about conspiracies or other nonsense. I saw this story, and I mean, I don't want to get my hopes up high because, you know, let's just say that the bill does get passed. And, you know, part of the problem I have with the whole disclosure thing is this, is that people will say, well, the secrecy is so deep, you can never get it out. You know, there's cabals in charge of this. There's this secret organization. Nobody knows about it. You can't track it. You can't trace it. But at the same time, some of those people have come out going, oh, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Well, if you can't get past the secrecy, what do you think this bill's going to do?
Right. Absolutely. And this was the Select Committee on Intelligence, and there were some other, I mean, the whole thing, I'm just sitting here reading this, and they're talking about advanced aerial threats. The committee supports the efforts of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force of the Office of Naval Intelligence to standardize collection and reporting on unidentified aerial phenomena. And so this is big, and it is also interesting when you look at some of the research or some of the things that they're saying in this, that they're gathering. They want to a detailed analysis of unidentified phenomena, data collected by geospatial intelligence, signals intelligence, human intelligence, and measurement and signals intelligence. And then they're also, like you mentioned, a detailed analysis of the FBI, which was derived from investigations of intrusions of unidentified aerial phenomena data over restricted airspace, which I just want to go back in there. This plays into some of the work that Barry Greenwood did, which is mentioned in the Bass 500 page report and things. And so we're getting some of the same bleed throughs, but the whole thing is very interesting. And to me, it also kind of screams of the fact that, you know, we've got to be really careful when we're saying this is, you know, linking UAP to extraterrestrial.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, a lot of people going, oh, it's aliens. You know, I'm undecided. I really am. I don't know which it is. And if I did and I could prove it, well, that'd be another story. But I'm just like everybody else out there who is kind of trying to figure out what's going on and, you know, what did I see so many years ago and what did I experience here and there. I'm going to really want to figure that out. And hopefully this process is going to be part of that conversation in the future. But, you know, we'll see if it gets passed or not.
And again, you know, it's been interesting for me when I'm looking at Skinwalker Ranch, when I'm looking at Bass, when I'm looking at the people that have been kind of steering the narrative or shaping the narrative over the decades, you know, people in the quote unquote aviary, they have all had, you know, specific ideas. They've all made money off of things, and they've been steering a narrative. And it has been, for me, it's been curious when I've kind of done a little deep dive and I've looked into their political affiliations and looked into, you know, where the money is going and certain things. And so is this going to be another circumstance of when you look at the players behind the scenes, like Harry Reid, and you look at where the funding is going from A, B, C, and D, you know, is there more to that, and should we look deeper instead of just saying that this could be a really cool thing? Do we need to do that?
Oh, absolutely. I think you got to know everybody that's involved. You have to try to identify all the players and gather as much info as you possibly can. And I'll go back to this, and this is, you know, going back to when those Navy videos got released. Nobody's been able to explain those. They've officially been labeled as such. And the other part of that was that release of those videos prompted a lot of discussion, especially in the federal government with senators and congresspeople, and it's been real interesting. And so, you know, credit where credit is due. Boy, those guys that were at TTSA dropping that moved a lot of this. I really do believe that. And I know there are a lot of people who are not fans of TTSA or Tom DeLonge or the rest of them. I have my own issues with some of the stuff that's come out of there. But in the end, you know, credit where credit is due. And hopefully this gets us somewhere.
And, you know, I mean, we all, and John mentioned this too. It's like when the December 7th, you know, article came out in 2017. I mean, that was that was great because it gave us more credibility, maybe. And so that was interesting. But then when you look a little bit deeper and you see that these videos were actually on the internet before,
Yeah, one of them that I know of. Yeah.
Right. And so, and that came from Germany, and there are all sorts of questions about the way things rolled out in that regard. And also, it's like one of those things to me when I'm looking at this, and you look at NIDS, and you say these, they came out. John Alexander came out and specifically said that we're going to give this information out to the public, and yet at the end of the day, nothing was ever given out. And I see that, unfortunately, time and time again, where you've got an organization like TTSA, we're going to get to the bottom of things, but hey, invest in us, or hey, we're going to do this new app that's collecting all your data and tracking you, I'm sure, and doing all these things, but let's not ask about that. And, just all of these people that are holding these promises out there, but what are they really doing behind the scenes? And those are things that we need to look at really seriously, because we look at MUFON and we look at the fact that, Bigelow went in there and purchased that database with people's personal information in that.
Oh, so, I believe he also purchased files from Linda Howe as well.
No, there's a shocker.
Yeah, and at least 2 of my cases were in those files.
And isn't that amazing? And so here you've got Bigelow, who's buying up all these databases with personal information in that. Now you've got TTSA that is out there, and they're trying to develop these apps that will no doubt gather up more personal information about people and tracking locations, potentially, all of these things. And it's like, at what point don't people maybe get a little bit alarmed that perhaps some of our personal information is getting sucked up into a vacuum and we don't know what the purposes are?
Yeah, personal information, as far as the internet and apps and everything else are concerned, is that it's not that hard to get information on people anymore. It's way too easy. And, data collection for apps is just part of the game now. That's just part of how it goes, and it's unfortunate. And I really wish that a lot of privacy laws were passed regarding that, because there's so much. Your personal data, it's too easy to find. It's too easy to find, but that doesn't mean you should be giving it just because it's an agreement of part of an app. I don't think that's right.
Well, and it was funny, and I just have to bring this up because I think this is really important. I've had, Phil Leach on my show a number of times, and he was at MUFON and things, and there were times when people went in there and they had access to the database with people's names, addresses, and then you had state directors or field investigators that were interviewing these witnesses and finding out what prescription medication they were taking, finding out really personal details, and these witnesses thought that would be safe in the MUFON database or safe with specific investigators, and that was anything but the truth. And so, could this, be the same type of thing? It's like we think technology is so great, and yet when we get a new update on our computer, we don't read the fine lines. And we don't understand that, there's another loophole and there's another way for our data to escape and go where, and what is the end goal, and how has that happened in the UFO community. I think that's a really important thing to stress.
I'll tell you this, when Bob Bigelow first bought all of those files from everybody, and it started to come out about, from the abduction folks and other people, at first, when Bob wasn't sharing any information about what was going on with NIDS and this and that, I really didn't blame him that much, because of how the talking heads, so to speak, out in ufology will grab a story and, they'll grab someone's information and run with it. And I don't think Bob really wanted to be exposed to that. I really don't. And at the time I was okay with it, because I was like, well, the guy's collecting data. He doesn't want to tell people what he's doing. It's his money. And some of that's still true. It is his money and it is his data, so to speak. But I've kind of reversed course on that now, knowing what I know. And yeah, taking people's private data, especially when you've assured them confidentiality, and burning those people, that's wrong.
Well, it is, especially with the abduction research, because that is such a vulnerable, people are very vulnerable. And, it's like you're finding people that you want to believe in and trust with something that you wouldn't tell even your husband or, your wife, because it is so shocking to every part of you, and that you'll be shunned and all sorts of things. And so you're trusting somebody like Carpenter, or you're trusting people involved in an organization, and at the end of the day, that information is compromised. And I just think it's a real slippery slope here, and a lot of people involved in ufology are very concerned about their rights, as we all should be. And so when you're involved in giving information out, where does that information go? We have to ask those questions. We have to start looking at, like I've mentioned before, the different people that are involved in the subject who have potential ties to MK Ultra, to Sidney Gottlieb, to some of these other programs that aren't necessarily in the best interests of all of us who are listening tonight.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's the conspiracy things. I remember hearing about, MK Ultra long ago and just thinking, oh my God, this is nonsense. But apparently not nonsense on, a lot of it. But it's just the whole conspiracy thing is just so, you just want to shake your head and pound your fist and go, why are you believing any of this stuff? At least with MK Ultra, there's documents,
right?
that are validated. So at least you have that.
Well, and it is interesting. I mean, apparently, from what I'm learning, the CIA came up with the term conspiracy theory because they wanted to create doubt. If somebody questioned a narrative, that was a great way of almost discrediting the person that was coming forward by saying, "Oh, it's a conspiracy theory." And I'm not saying, that there aren't a lot of there are a lot of holes to fall down, and unfortunately, the internet is making it very easy for us to have an idea and to go on there and say, okay, I can go down this rabbit hole, and then it's substantiated by more nonsense and all of these things. But it's, it's never a dull moment. That
saying, a curse and a blessing. I mean, that's really technology. It absolutely is, and. The conspiracy thing and all that, people hear this conspiracy word surrounding UFOs all the time, even newcomers. And what I see is that, the conspiracy always ties into disinformation campaigns, right? And so part of that, when you hear a disinfo campaign, you're like, okay. And some people automatically recognize that as kind of a conspiracy term when it really isn't. We know that there have been disinformation campaigns. I mean, Paul Benowitz, and who knows how many others. And so the conspiracy thing, I try to stay away from as much as I can for that reason, is because it sounds shady. But the disinfo thing is 100% real. Anybody who says, oh, it's just a conspiracy, no, they're full of it. They don't know what they're talking about.
And so go a little bit deeper into that. I know we've only got a few minutes before the show closes, but the disinformation aspect is something that people need to understand. It is very real, and it's been interesting to me to work with some of the older people in the subject because they feel like the disinfo really took place back in the 50s and 60s, and I'm seeing more of it now than ever.
Well, if anybody has not read this book, it's called Project Beta, and it's by a gentleman named Greg Bishop. And that is one of my required reading suggestions for anybody interested in UFOs, to kind of see how a lot of the mythos that's in the field now came to being. That book is just fabulous. And essentially what happened was there was a guy named Paul Benowitz. He was a scientist, and he had a contract with the government. And his lab was located outside an air base. And he started filming lights and supposedly receiving some kind of unusual transmission on some of his equipment. And he went to the base and contacted the Air Force there and said, hey, listen, I'm seeing these things flying, and I've got all of these messages or strange codes and radio frequencies and this and that I'm intercepting. And the Air Force went home and got very interested in it, and they sent a gentleman out to wage a disinformation campaign on Paul Benowitz to make him believe that what he was seeing was UFOs. And it resulted in him finally having to check into a mental institution.
Right.
Even though none of the information he was being fed was real.
Very concerted effort. I mean, this wasn't a small thing.
No,
this
no,
took
this
a lot
was
of
not
time,
a small
a lot
thing.
of money, and a lot of manpower.
This was an operation where they were breaking into people's houses and feeding people false documents. And it wasn't just Paul Benowitz who was involved. It was another pretty well-known UFO researcher whom they got to give Paul Benowitz fake documents. And they were delivering fake documents to him as well, apparently. And the whole story, just please read the book. There's no way possible I can cover this in like 10 minutes or however much time we have left. Again, that book is called Project Beta, and it's by Greg Bishop. And it's just an amazing book. And also the documentary Mirageman was also very well done.
Absolutely. And again, you know, and Greg is one of my dear friends, and he's been on the show multiple times, and I'll have to get him back to talk about this. And then Christian Lambright, you know, is also, he wrote a book called X Descending and different things, and they've all looked into that. And I think, you know, again, when you've got this is information, this is known, you've got these same players stepping into somebody's life because they're photographing things or thinking they're getting things, and they're probably, unfortunately, interfering with some top secret testing. And so you've got, you know, people going in to discredit somebody or to drive somebody crazy, which is in and of itself just amazing. And when I'm throwing things out there about what could have potentially happened at Skinwalker Ranch with some of the same people involved, you know, it's the same. It's just kind of met with people who are just, I don't know what, they just don't have enough brain power to connect the dots. But we have to be careful. This subject can so easily be manipulated and used as a smokescreen for other more nefarious things. Absolutely. And Benowitz is a prime example.
Yeah, clearly it has been. You know, probably the best advice that I can give to anybody is weaponize your common sense. Start looking at things a little more deeply, and really rely on your common sense. Rely on, you know, you're looking at actual evidence, and I just don't see enough of that anymore. There's a lot of people out there patting each other on the back, trying to be kind of celebrities, I suppose, and maybe trying to get famous and wanting to get paid. And you just have to really watch out for those people.
You know, you do. And it's sad. And I would say to all of those people who are clearly listening and responding on Twitter and things, I mean, if you can't, you know, stand up and engage in a logical, thoughtful conversation where you understand that there is much more to this, and a lot of people have paid the price for this, then there's a problem. And, you know, all of us, you, John, we all encourage people to really look into things and to not buy the narrative that is being spoon-fed to us decade after decade, because that's not disclosure.
No, it isn't. It isn't at all. And, you know, you always just run into the same people all the time. And people looking up to those people, you know, why don't you look up to people like Phyllis Bettinger?
Right.
Why aren't we looking up to people, you know, rest in peace, Ted Phillips?
Right.
Who's just done, his body of work is incredible in terms of evidence that there's something going on that we don't understand or know about or have yet to be able to explain. What about, you know, people like that? I don't get it.
You know, I don't either, but I think, unfortunately, there are the powers that be, or certain players have a lot of money, and they can, you know, use it to do what they're going to do and mount social media campaigns and to impress people that are gullible. And it's just an interesting thing. But I think more than anything that we have to just mindful and cognizant of what's taking place around us. And you've been one of those people that I'm really happy you came into my orbit, even though you scared me at first, kind of like like Jack Brewer or Robert Schaefer. I mean, but there are good people out there, and I just want to say, because we just got a minute left, but please look at Paul Dean's work, UFOs Documenting the Evidence. Please look at Robert Schaefer wrote a great article. You've got Keith Basterfield. There's so many, Kurt Collins, so many people that are doing things like you, Royce, and I really appreciate that. And we have to make sure we understand all of that and the hard work that they're putting into finding the truth for all of us. So thank you for being here. Where can people find you?
Oh, well, let's see. Online, my old website, UFOWatchdog.com. And from there's a little link to a blog. And I have a Facebook page.
Ooh, well, prepare yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And much love to everybody. Please stay out there, be safe and concerned about your fellow human beings. This is an interesting time we're living in, but I appreciate all of your support. Thank you for being here, Royce. That was really fun. Stick around for Willie Miranda. He is up next. Much love to Tina Marie for everything that she does to make KCOR
Thank you, Tina.
a great station. Yeah, absolutely. You guys stay safe, and we will catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just